Hi Sarah, and thanks for requesting a demo of InShip. And before we start, can you give me a quick outline of the company you're looking to put InShip into, sort of its size and what problems you have within AP?
Yep, so we're a medium-sized company. We handle about 250 invoices a month at the moment, and we'll be upping that to 500 invoices in the next couple of months. 70% of them are processed as POs, and the rest are just journalized. We have 4 branches. In some of those branches, I'd just like the maintenance team to approve their specific invoices, but I would want them to have limited access to the remainder of our invoices. We also have a lot of variations in prices and stuff we order from PO, so it'll be interesting to see how you guys deal with that. My main concern and what takes up most of my time is statement reconciliation at the end of the month. Currently, we're just manually inputting all our invoices in, and then we're storing them in LibreArch files. Before, we have looked at scanning them, but that took far too much time. So yeah, we're just looking for a new solution.
Okay, thanks for that, Sarah. I think there's a lot of points you brought up there, and I think I should be able to cover them all in the demo. And I think we have a good solution that will actually tick a lot of boxes for you. And just in relation to the InShip itself, InShip's been around for a few years, but its original design concept would have been built around a business of your size. And we do supply people that are smaller, and actually some businesses that are an awful lot bigger than that. So we sort of go on both ends, but we wanted to put the functionality, which is really where you need to focus in a business of your size. In front of you here is the InShip homepage. This is what each user sees, and it is actually they're looking at the documents that are associated for them. This is a administrator's homepage, but if this was like your maintenance team, a lot of the boxes would be grayed off, and they'd actually only be able to go into probably approval, review, and search. They can only search for documents that have been set for them to approve, and they will only be sent documents that are set for them to approve, or you might actually get them to just review documents if you feel they're going to hold up the process. Now, in relation to the process, how does InShip work? What we do with InShip is we will try and get you to get as many of your suppliers. In reality, that's nearly all of your suppliers to email your invoices in, either to an email account at InShip, or invoices at your own account, invoices at your business name, and those can be forwarded on to InShip. This means that you're not doing any scanning, you're not doing any work. The invoices arrive in InShip, ready for the InShip process to take over. So what you were doing in relation to scanning, you no longer have to do. InShip automatically does that for you. Okay, so basically talking about process, how the InShip process works is you will get your suppliers to either send their invoices by email to your business name at InShip, i.e. an InShip email account, or invoices at your own domain name, and they get forwarded onto InShip. InShip picks up those emails, reads them through, and basically processes them. So you're no longer scanning, and it's just a simplified process. So that piece of work actually 100% disappears. So the first time an invoice comes in, you have to set up that supplier, but that then works for all future invoices from that supplier. And then future invoices just start to flow through the system, and they end up normally going into the approval process. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take you through the process bit by bit and show you how to set up an invoice. Now, before I'm actually going to show you, I'm just going to sort of say that in our onboarding process, we will actually set up your suppliers for the first 2 to 3 months. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I only need to set up a template once or a document once every time it comes in from a supplier?
Once per supplier, not every time a document comes in, but once a supplier sends in an invoice, you set up that particular invoice. So if somebody say changes their invoice style, you then have to set up a new template. It will not recognize the new invoice, but that doesn't really happen that often.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so I'm just going to go into these 21 documents here on the far left-hand side of the screen. There's 21 new documents in here. We're just going to go in here to set up basically one of the templates. Now, you can see that the workload is not 21 documents need to be set up. There's actually 4 documents need to be set up because one supplier sent in 18 invoices that are the same. So we're just going to go in to set a template up on that there. Okay, so what you have here is in front of you, you have the invoice. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you have the information that we've grabbed off the invoice. And I'll just talk you through how this works and what you can do with it. The first thing is the questions are all very simple. How do you know this is an invoice? The system would have found the word invoice and would have highlighted the word invoice here. So you're just confirming that's right, you're doing nothing. How do you know that this document is from a particular supplier? You can highlight their logo, or you can highlight their name. And highlighting is just drawing a box around it. That's how hard it is. If you can draw boxes, you can use InShip. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So basically the next thing is now we're actually grabbing the information that's off, the key information that you want. In this case here, we're just grabbing 3 simple pieces of information: the invoice number, its date, and the order number. Again, the system will make an attempt to find them. If it gets it right, you do nothing. If it gets it wrong, you may just basically delete it and then draw a box around the right piece of information. So I've changed how we're actually reading the invoice. Beforehand, it was actually reading the word invoice number and looking to the right to find the invoice number. This option now is actually just going to read this area here. So just say for order number, instead of actually going and reading this particular area in future invoices, it's going to read the words order and your ref number and look to the right, and that's where it knows where the order number is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can also, like I know you mentioned maintenance, but like you can also add different capture fields if you want to the system. If you wanted to, you can add project number, vehicle number if vehicles, their maintenance. We have people highlighting tail numbers because they're basically looking after airplanes, different things. We also have another function which I think may be helpful to yourself, where you said you're the number of branches. We can automatically code or change who's going to actually see an invoice based on a branch. So what we do here, again, it's drawing a box. We have a section called custom routing that you can switch on. If I draw a box around custom routing, what it means is a key within this area, if we see it, we will actually action that invoice in a different way. So I'll give you a very simple example. If this company here has a branch in Raheen and it has different call centers set up, it can change the call center based on seeing Raheen and the delivery address. And for their Sligo branch, it would actually change the call center to the Sligo branch. And it can actually be set up to forward that invoice to the Sligo manager for him to approve, or the Limerick manager for him to approve, or her to approve, whichever way it works. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay, yeah, that's very interesting. That would be very helpful for us.
Yeah, and like sort of what you could do, I would suggest, and we would have to look at the invoices, and like, it depends on how people set things up. This is a good chance what we would be doing for the maintenance people, if they're looking after certain vehicles, is we will actually use the vehicle reg number as the maintenance, as the custom routing field. So you set that up once, you say that reg number 123 goes to John and goes to this call center. From then on, every time on invoices that you draw the custom routing option, it will actually code the code the invoice to that vehicle and send it off to him to approve. Okay.
Yeah.
Next in this particular invoice, we've gone and grabbed all the line item details. Why have we grabbed the line item details? Firstly, it's actually to deal with one of the issues that you mentioned, and it deals with them in 2 ways. That's if there's price variances between what you've ordered and what you expected the supplier to charge. And also, even if it's not an ordered item, we'll actually let you know if there's a price movement. And the system can be set up, say, for example, that if a price movement's outside a certain value range or outside a certain percentage range, it can be forwarded on to somebody for them to review or for them to approve. Even if the purchase order has allowed for a 20% increase, we find in some organizations that the managing director still wants to see it as a secondary check if there's any increase above maybe 5%, it goes to the managing director for them to see. The other reasons that we actually grab the line items is so that you can actually search based on a line item. So know those lovely lever arch files you have. if you're looking for a particular invoice with a particular line item on it, or all invoices that say have BPW airbags on them, it would take you forever to do that. With InShip, it's a simple inquiry, and I'll show you that later on, that you just type in the words and it will get you every single invoice that's on. Really, really in an efficient manner. Also, we do it for, you can do reports based on stock movements, and you can nominally code if it's a nominal ledger invoice based on a line item. So if we think again, this delivery address plus the line item can actually be used to set up the coding on this particular invoice. So that line item would be 100% dynamic in relation to how it's coded. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's very helpful for us.
And then down at the bottom here, we're grabbing the goods, net, and VAT. And in this case here, this company normally supplies us at 0 and 23%, so we just have to set up that's a 0 and 23% invoice, and we know the system will automatically calculate the VAT, the different VAT rates. If they had normally 3 VAT rates, what we ask you to do is highlight the table analysis here, and it will code the invoice accordingly. Okay.
Okay.
And finally, so this is where you basically put in supplier rules. What we have here is this invoice, when it comes in, it's going to go to these 2 individuals to approve, or we can overwrite that and get it to be done by custom routing. We can say if any invoice above a certain amount, so if we're happy that we don't need anyone to see an invoice that's below 50 euros, we can set that as 50 euros. And the approval process, they just say, you mentioned that you got maintenance teams and that you want them to look at invoices. If you want, you can actually set them with limits. So they can only approve invoices up to, say, 250 euros. And then the invoice above 250 euros goes on to somebody else. And that whole process can be set up in a very, very flexible manner. You know, like in fact, we have businesses that spend, that have multi-million pound invoices on InShip. And you can imagine they might have 20 or 30 approvals to go through before that invoice is actually allowed to be processed. I know your business is not going to be like that, but it gives you the idea of how simple or how complex you can actually put that process together. Okay. Next, if you have an invoice that came in that was a bad scan or a once-off invoice that you don't want to actually set a template, we have a quick way of actually setting it and of reading invoices, and this is basically what we call Ultra. So on this side here, we're showing you what we've read off the invoice. When you click on the invoice based on the VAT number, we actually sort of know who the supplier is because we've dealt with him before. We know what his nominal ledger coding is, and the system reads, works out what the VAT, etc., is on it. And if we're happy with it, we just press save and approve. And that will actually approve the invoice and move it on without actually having to set up a template. So those one-off invoices, you don't have to set up a template. There's a quick way of doing it.
Okay.
Okay. And next, just before we go into approving invoices, let's stay with a little bit of work. But this is actually taking work away from you. If invoices have problems with them, they go into alerts. So they don't go on, and they don't go on to, say, the maintenance guys to approve or the MD to approve. They stay with the admin team. So we've a few simple examples here of invoices with issues. This is date outside appropriate range. We have if any invoices before 3 months old, in other words, more than 3 months old, sorry, it comes into alerts and sort of says, listen, someone admin, just have a quick look at it, just to make sure there's nothing strange about it. The second thing is if you've got duplicate invoices, I presume your supplier sends you in copy invoices every now and again.
Oh God, yeah.
So we automatically take them out the second they come in. So you like sort of, we find with a lot of companies, I would have found it when I worked in your position in the past, that you get a duplicate invoice, and it's only when you go to enter it on the computer system, which is the last step in maybe 8 or 9 stages, that you discover, oh, I already have it on the system.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
yeah. But we do it right away at the start. So again, it's all about trying to save you time. And just to let you see on this one here, what we actually do is we give you a link to the other invoice. So you can see where the other invoice is to see if it's the same, etc., etc. So you're giving a lot of detail very, very fast. You're just sort of linking it. Yeah, no, that invoice is the same as the other invoice. Okay.
Yeah.
So now if I sort of look at approving invoices, this is where your work really is. So instead of going through a big wad of invoices like you might be doing at the moment, all your approvals go in here. The approvals that go in here are only your approvals. And some organizations, AP, remove themselves from the approval process because of the fact that they can push it out. So what we have here, as you can see, our pile of invoices is nicely sorted by supplier. It's valued. We're showing you what the VAT is on it. So it's in a nice, simple way. So like if you want to know how much it is, you just look. It's the information's there. It's not a struggle to find. If you want to, you can actually say I only want to look for invoices within a date range. If you're looking to close your month end off, obviously you wouldn't be doing it at this late in the month, but if you're looking to close your month end off and you're 5 or 6 days into the month, you don't want to be processing current month invoices. You want to only focus on last month's invoices. So in that respect, you can say I only want to look at invoices from this date or from that date. Also, you can say I only want to look at nominal ledger invoices or your journalized invoices, or I only want to look at purchase order invoices. So you can decide what you want to look at. So what I'm going to do here, I think it makes sense for yourself, is I'm going to have a look through some nominal ledger invoices and how they're displayed and how you process them. And then we switch over to POs. It's quite similar, but there's a couple of slight differences. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so if I just come in here, what we're going to do is we're going to go through this particular supplier here. And before I go in and look at the invoices here, you can see that we've got €2,600 worth of invoices, including VAT, to approve for this supplier. We can see that there's 5 suppliers here, or sorry, 5 invoices here. Just to let you know, the system is saying that it sees 2 price variances on a couple of invoices, so they should be quite interesting. We've got one invoice that's on hold, and you can see the rest. We're showing you the date of the invoice, the invoice number, where it's been coded, because these have been custom coded to, or custom routed and coded to the Cork store. If anyone's added a comment to it, it's showing it here. And you obviously have the value of the invoice, the VAT, and the total. If I wanted to, I could go and just click, 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 and process every single one of those invoices, or even one click and process all the invoices from that particular supplier without actually seeing them. But most people want to go in and actually see the invoice that they're actually approving before they approve it. So the first thing is, where's the invoice? It's actually hidden behind. So that's the invoice that the supplier sent, and that's what we've read off the invoice. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And next, you can see that we just go through, we'll just cover coding first. Next, we see that this is going to the Cork store, and it's custom routing to the Cork store. So our nominal coding over the far right-hand side here is basically to the Cork store. But you can see we have other line items that are going to different locations, and these are based on these nominal ledger line item codings. So particular items have gone to the particular nominal ledger codes. That was set up in the past. In the past, when somebody was setting up an invoice, they said that this item goes to this nominal ledger. So you can auto change that, and the system remembers it from then on. Next, you have a couple of comment boxes. We have a drop-down comment box. So if you wanted to, if you're running a project or something special, you wanted to basically grab a piece of information and put it on an invoice, you can very simply put it on. If you have a simple comment that you want to put onto an invoice, you can apply that comment if you want to. But in this case here, and we're not going to do that. If we're happy with the invoice, we're going to basically press approve. But as I said on the way into this invoice is on hold, so it won't allow me to approve it. You can see down here that it's actually on hold, and it's waiting for us to remove it from hold. I'm going to skip on to the next invoice because I don't know why this is on hold, and I'm in a hurry at the moment. So just skip on to the next invoice. So the next invoice here, exactly the same line items have been custom coded. You can see down here though, we've got some price watch information. So if I slip down here, I can see that these two items have gone down in price. And if I click on one of the items, it will immediately bring me to another invoice, or the other invoice where the price was at the lower price. So we're automatically linking those two. So even on non-PO invoices, we're grabbing price variances. Do you think that would be helpful, Sarah?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's amazing.
And just another thing in relation to sort of looking at an invoice, if I double click on this line item and do a Google search, and it will actually find a good chance of finding what item that you've actually just done a search on. So that can be very good for watching out for sort of unusual items that you're buying and getting pricing on those particular items. But the majority of the time, you're not doing that much. You're just saying, I'm happy with that invoice. You're clicking approve, and the system moves on to your next one. You're happy, approve, move on to the next one. Now process 3 invoices there. That's how fast the system is. You mentioned that statements is a big issue for yourself.
Yeah.
If I look at this here, I can see, I don't know if you spotted this, it says that this invoice approves on appears in a statement. So if I click on that, what it will do is it will bring me to the statement. What we've read off the statement, the supplier sent in the statement. When you ask the supplier to send in an invoice to an email address, they'll send in correct notes and statements as well. So we've read off that, we've grabbed the statement, we've read the date, invoice number, and the value, and then we've matched that against the invoices that we have. So this is all automated. And one thing I sort of say, Sarah, when you're doing reconciliations, you're reconciling against what's in your accounts package.
Yeah.
But it's actually very hard to reconcile what's on somebody's desk. Would that be fair enough?
Yeah, definitely.
So we're reconciling what's in the whole organization. So what's ready to upload, what's been uploaded to the accounts package, and what a maintenance man or a managing director or a sales manager is sitting on. So we're reconciling against the whole lot. So at times, like I know in the past, I would have requested copy invoices from a supplier because I don't have that invoice, only to get the invoice a day later because somebody was sitting on it and looking to approve it. So at least here you know where it is, and you can very quickly go to that invoice and see who's actually going to approve it. In this case, it's been approved. It's ready to upload. You can see that it was basically with the onboard team. Okay.
Yeah.
Just to go through a couple of actions here before we sort of move on to the other section. If I'm not happy with an invoice, even after approving, I can actually reject the invoice. And it would send it back to whoever emailed in the invoice. It would send me a copy of it, and I can just give a simple reason why I want to reject it. That will remove the invoice from the process, and it's not going to be in your workflow. In effect, it's deleted. But the good thing is anything that's deleted, we leave on the system for 2 years. So it's actually held for a long time, while everything else is held for 7 years to ensure that we're complying with revenue. Okay?
Yeah.
And if I want to put this in an invoice on hold, I can put it on hold. That hold can be public. In other words, I can tell my supplier I'm putting it on hold, or I can just do it for an internal hold that we're not telling suppliers on hold. If I want to, I can forward the invoice on to somebody else. If it's not for me to approve, if it's something unusual, I can send it on to somebody else to approve.
Okay.
So what we're doing here is just sort of doing everything that you can do with a piece of paper, how it would flow around an office. Also, sort of, the system is set up. We don't basically send people email reminders every time they get an invoice to approve. That can be set up to be done daily or weekly. And sort of every day they'll get an email saying they got 5 invoices, 25 invoices to approve. And whoever's running the system can actually get a global report and do a name and shame. And that normally solves the problem and moves things forward in quite a fast way. Okay?
Yep.
So if we just go now into looking at PO invoices, I'm going to just pick a supplier down here, Stevens Motor Factors, and he has a fair few invoices that are PO orientated. Now, because all of these match to an actual PO, what I can actually do is I can just with one click approve them all, or again approve them on an individual basis, or just go into the actual supplier. So if invoices match to a PO, with a couple of clicks, you can actually group every invoice in the company that matches to a PO that you're up to approve, and with one click, actually approve all of them without actually reviewing the invoice. But let's, on this particular case, because you have asked about variants, and I think that you're probably going to review invoices, we're going to go in and actually look at a particular invoice. So if I switch around here, and again, you can see the invoice. So always the invoice is behind you. What we're showing here is that this invoice matches the PO and the GRN that's associated with that PO, because we've actually taken in the PO and GRN information. And just maybe to explain how that works, some people think we're going to get you to email in their POs as well. Now, what we do is we have for different accounts packages, we have different apps that link up, and we actually take in from those systems normally the outstanding GRNs and match those against invoices. But in other cases as well, we actually can take in the actual PO information for people who don't actually GRN. But that's system dependent, and we work with different systems in different ways based on the limitations that they give us. But you can see here what's happening here is every single one of those line items are in green, and that's because those line items match the line items here on the right hand side.
Okay.
The total invoice matches green, so everything's okay with that. Again, I'm happy, approve. I'm happy, approve. I'm happy, approve. And that's what you're doing. That's the speed of processing. You're just going through them very, very fast. But it's all about trying to get you to focus your time on checking the information rather than spending your time handling paper, etc., etc. Okay?
Yeah, that's great.
So just finally, if I just a couple of other things I show you, and what I want to show you is basically search. You said about you normally store all your invoices in Lever Arch files. Now what we have is all our invoices in a multiple accessible system. And unlike a scan piece of software, what we're doing is we're actually totally reading the invoice, so you can actually search based on a lot of information that's on the invoice rather than just actually looking for a particular invoice number. Like probably the simplest search, and the one I would do most, is when you do a search based on the supplier. And here you can see the supplier names. If you just pick a supplier, it will actually return all the invoices for that supplier. So just do a quick search on that.
And you can search, you can type in the supplier you're looking for as well. You don't have to scroll down the list.
Correct, yeah. Or what I'm going to do is just going to reset this search. And I'm going to search by a line item. So I'm going to actually look for any invoice that has MOT on it. Now, this is a very complex search because it's going through every invoice, reading every single line item and putting out any invoice that has MOT as part of a line item or as part of a word. So we'll take out motor as well as MOT for the MOT test in the UK, because this is where it's going to do the main search on. And you can see it's got a number of different invoices there, but probably the most important thing to bear in mind is it's got a report button here. With that, I can just do a quick summary report of all the invoices I've searched, or I can do a product line item report, and that would show me every single item that's been purchased on every single one of those invoices. And so you can think of the power of doing that. Like at the moment, if just say, for example, like something that happened to me in the past, that you bring an invoice to a divisional manager to approve, and he thinks it's way out of what much higher than it normally is, and say, hey, we get me 6 months of those those suppliers' invoices. That would be a huge task. Within InShip now, it's a couple of clicks of the mouse, and you'll actually get it.
Yeah, amazing.
So, and then next to those lovely shells that you have the Lever Arch files in, you can actually get rid of them and maybe put some in. And then in all seriousness, it's sort of one of our beta customer had a massive big shelf that they built just before they got InShip, where they were planning on storing 2 years worth of documents, and now it has basically some lovely vases and flowers. Nice environment.
Definitely.
Couple of other small things, drag and drop. For example, if someone does email you an invoice, say to your email address, you can either forward it on, or there's a drag and drop option into InShip. Also, you will find that there's a few utilities that don't email invoices, but they have a portal where you can go into. You can download the invoices from there and drag and drop them into the system. And then finally, there's a report section. And the report sections are sort of ad hoc reports. A lot of reports, you still focus on getting them through your accounts package. What we're doing is we're basically giving you reports on your statement reconciliations. We're giving you reports on tracking where documents are at this moment in time, and some of the document setups and different things like that. It's sort of more about the documents, but they are very useful and helpful reports. And a lot, like especially sort of the detailed line items, you can get more information at times out of InShip than you would out of your accounts package at that level of information.
And just on on your accounts package, how would I send all this information over to my accounts package?
That depends on the accounts package you're working with. Some accounts packages we have what's called an API link, and that means when you're in the upload section here, when you click on the upload, it will, and you click complete, it will send the information directly to the accounts package. While on other systems, we will generate a file, and we have an app that will basically bring that over. Or finally, other systems have a way of actually allowing you to transfer the data, and we basically go on the back of that. So it does depend on the actual system we're working with. And we've also, for some bigger system, we have diarized functionality. In other words, at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, all the information is automatically sent over from one system to the other. But it depends on the companies and the systems we're working with, so what the company's needs are and the system's needs are. So we work in different ways for different people. I haven't answered your question, but I've given you a sort of a broad outline of what we can do.
And do you integrate with many accounts packages?
We integrate at the moment. I think we integrate with over 30, and we're always adding. I think on the table that we're actually adding at the moment, we're adding another 7 over the next two months or so. So that number is a growing number. It's going from, say, 35 to 40, over 40. And then it will be over 50 within probably the next 6 months. I think I've answered all your questions, and sort of, I think you gave me an outline of your business, and I sort of showed you how it would work with multiple branches. I showed you how you can control your documents, so only the people you want to see documents can see documents. I think you've seen the price and the price watch, which was watching in for price variances, and statement reconciliation. So basically, that gives you a sort of a good outline of how the system works.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a great tool that would save a lot of time in our business.
Okay, so the next stage is I'll get your quote out later on today. Does that make sense?
Perfect. It's nice speaking to you. Thank you for the demo.
Okay, no problem. Thank you for your time.
Bye.
Bye.